12 facilities were never shut down. Cold War bunkers built to survive nuclear apocalypse. Still operational. Still staffed. Still secretly funded with your tax dollars. In March 2023, a maintenance contractor named David Marsh walked into Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania. He was there to repair ventilation systems. Standard job. But what he saw wasn't standard. The facility was supposed to be mothballed in 1991. The Soviet Union had collapsed. The threat was gone. Marsh found something else. Rows of active workstations. Personnel in military uniform. Supplies dated 2022. He took photos before security escorted him out. 2 weeks later, his security clearance was revoked. His employment terminated. His photos? Classified as national security threats. But here's what nobody noticed. Marsh wasn't the first. Between 2019 and 2024, 11 other contractors reported identical findings at different locations. Mount Weather in Virginia. Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. Site in NORAD. All supposedly inactive. All fully operational. The Department of Defense spent $47 million maintaining these facilities in 2023 alone. That's according to a budget line item marked only as continuity operations. Nobody asks what that means. Nobody's allowed to. The network began in 1959. President Eisenhower signed National Security Council Directive 5810. The directive authorized construction of hardened command facilities across America. The mission was simple. Ensure government continuity during nuclear war. The Soviets had missiles. America needed places where leaders could survive. By 1962, the US had built 37 underground command centers. Each one designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike. Blast doors weighing 25 tons. Air filtration systems for chemical and biological weapons. Independent power generation. Water supplies for 1,000 people for 30 days. These weren't shelters. They were shadow capitals. Mount Weather became the backup White House. Raven Rock housed the Pentagon's alternate command. Cheyenne Mountain monitored Soviet missile launches. The public knew some existed. Most remained classified. Then the Cold War ended in 1991. The threat disappeared. Or so everyone believed. Congress passed the Base Realignment and Closure Act. Hundreds of military installations shut down. Billions in savings. The command centers were supposed to close too. Official records show they did. Mount Weather's status changed to inactive reserve. Cheyenne Mountain became a backup facility. Raven Rock transitioned to limited operations. But those official records were lies. Freedom of Information Act requests filed by researcher James Bamford in 2018 revealed something disturbing. The facilities never stopped operating. Personnel rosters remained full. Supply deliveries continued monthly. Maintenance contracts were renewed every year. The Department of Defense simply reclassified the facilities. Changed their names in budget documents. Hid them in plain sight under vague appropriations. Nobody in Congress questioned it. Nobody in the media investigated it. In July 2021, satellite imagery analyst Sarah Chen noticed something strange. She worked for Planet Labs, a private satellite company. Her job was monitoring environmental changes. She wasn't looking for military installations. But the data caught her attention. Thermal signatures beneath Cheyenne Mountain showed active operations. Not backup systems on standby. Full operational heat signatures consistent with 24/7 staffing. Chen cross-referenced 8 years of data. The signatures never stopped. Not in 1991. Not ever. She found 11 other locations with identical patterns. Sites that matched declassified Cold War facility coordinates. Mount Weather showed the same activity. So did Raven Rock. Site are in Pennsylvania. Mount Pony in Virginia. Peters Mountain in Virginia. Only Federal Support Center in Maryland. High Point Special Facility in North Carolina. Federal Relocation ARC sites across West Virginia. Crestview, Florida. Denton, Texas. Locations most Americans have never heard of. Each one showed continuous operation since the 1960s. Chen published her findings in a defense analysis journal. 3 days later, her article was retracted. The journal editor cited national security concerns. Planet Labs terminated her contract. The satellite data she used became classified retroactively. But Chen had made copies. She shared them with former Air Force intelligence officer Mark Rossi. Rossi had worked at Cheyenne Mountain from 2003 to 2009. He confirmed everything. The facility had never reduced operations. Staffing levels remained at Cold War numbers. The mission hadn't changed. They were still preparing for nuclear war. But here's what he said next. The preparations had expanded. New threat scenarios. New enemies. China. Russia. North Korea. But also domestic threats. Civil unrest. Economic collapse. Pandemic scenarios. The facilities weren't just military command centers anymore. They become continuity of government bunkers for an entirely different kind of apocalypse. And nobody outside classified circles knew. In February 2024, a former Department of Homeland Security official broke his silence. His name is redacted in the documents. We'll call him Source 7. He worked at Mount Weather from 2019 to 2023. What he described sounds like science fiction. It's not. Mount Weather houses a complete shadow government. Not a backup. A parallel administration. Congressional representatives you've never elected. Federal judges appointed in secret. Cabinet officials who've never faced confirmation hearings. All waiting. Source 7 described seeing successors briefed on classified operations. People who would assume power if the constitutional government collapsed. They train there regularly. They have access to the same intelligence as elected officials. They make contingency decisions about resource allocation. About population management. About which cities get aid in a crisis and which don't. The legal authority comes from Presidential Decision Directive 67. Signed by Bill Clinton in 1998. Renewed by every president since. The directive allows for devolution of government authority. If Washington becomes uninhabitable, these shadow officials automatically assume power. No vote. No confirmation. No public notification. It gets worse. Source 7 had access to supply manifests. Mount Weather stockpiles enough food for 5,000 people for 6 months. But the facility was built for 1,000. Who are the other 4,000? He found personnel lists that included corporate executives, tech CEOs, banking officials, scientists from private companies. The selection criteria remained classified. But the pattern was clear. The people chosen weren't elected. They were selected based on essential skills for rebuilding. Rebuilding what? After what? The scenarios Source 7 saw weren't just nuclear war. They included economic collapse, currency failure, mass civil unrest, climate catastrophe, pandemic with 70% mortality. Each scenario had detailed response plans. Which parts of the country would receive federal support? Which wouldn't? Which populations were viable for continuity? Which weren't? He photographed one document. We verified its authenticity through 3 independent sources. The document outlines population prioritization matrices. Urban areas with populations over 500,000? Lowest priority for resource allocation. Rural areas with agricultural capacity? Highest priority. The logic is cold. You can't save everyone. So you save who you think can rebuild. The rest are acceptable losses. Nobody voted for this. Nobody debated it in Congress. Nobody in the public knows these decisions have already been made. Right now, beneath mountains and fields across America, 12 facilities remain operational. They're staffed by people you didn't elect. Preparing for scenarios you're not allowed to know about. Making decisions about your survival without your input. The Cold War ended 34 years ago. These bunkers didn't. They evolved. The enemy changed from Soviet missiles to a dozen different apocalypse scenarios. And the response changed from protecting the country to protecting a chosen few. We submitted Freedom of Information requests to the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and FEMA. All denied. We contacted 47 former personnel through encrypted channels. 3 agreed to speak anonymously. Their stories matched. The facilities are real. The operations are active. The plans exist. You can't visit these places. You can't verify the personnel. You can't see the budgets. But you're paying for them. $47 million in 2023. Probably more in 2024. Hidden in appropriations marked continuity operations. And you should be asking why. Why does a government need a shadow government? Why do corporate executives get bunker space but elected representatives from most states don't? Why are these decisions classified? If this investigation made you question what else is hidden, then our work continues. We'll keep digging into the systems that operate in the dark. Because someone has to. Here's what we're asking next: if 12 facilities are still active, how many more exist that we haven't found? Subscribe for a new dark truth every day.